We have a brand new biome to explore. Not only that, but we have a really cool mob to mess around with. But of course, depending on how much we've already explored our previous worlds, it might be kind of hard for us to find. And that's super sad, especially because we have a brand new farm. Like, how crazy is that? So in celebration, I went through Chunk Base and found 14 seeds with Pale Gardens at spawn. And never fear, these seeds will continue to work on future versions. The only time that Mojang has ever seriously changed seed generation was at 1.18. And in that overhaul, they made Java and Bedrock have the same seed generation. So regardless of what version you are playing, these seeds will all be the same. Now of course, you cannot change the seed of a pre-existing world, but you can, however, pick the seed when creating a new one. Simply go to Advanced and enter the world seed in the corresponding section. But without further ado, let's jump into the seeds that I came across. This first one has 2 strongholds within 2,000 blocks of spawn, as well as a pretty good biome diversity. It had a Badlands up to the north and a swamp over to the east. Spawning in, the Pale Garden is right next to us. We almost spawn directly in it. It's not the biggest Pale Garden ever, but at least it's right at spawn. Now we also have a jungle off in the distance, next to an ocean, and a few other things like ruined portals as well. This seed is just completely covered in trees, so if you want a creepy forest seed, this one might be pretty cool. Our second seed has an absolutely massive mushroom island up to the north. This might be perfect for a multiplayer server. You know, having a big mushroom island is always a plus to have a safe communal district. Spawning in, we can see that there is a very large Pale Garden pretty much around spawn. And directly behind that, we have the spruce and the podzol, a really cool mountain next to that surrounded by a river, and there should be more of the Pale Garden directly behind that mountain as well. But the tree diversity of this one is really nice. Having the spruce and the podzol directly at spawn is always a big plus. This is definitely one of my favorite seeds in this video because of the mushroom island. You know, I'm a sucker for huge mushroom islands. Next up, this seed has a humongous Badlands up to the northwest. So that's always cool. The general diversity looks pretty nice as well. Spawning in, we can see dark oak and regular oak and birch, and looking around, we see the Pale Garden on top of that mountainous hill over there. Ooh, and I love little islands like that. They are so fun to build on and build bridges to. And we also have a savanna off in the distance for acacia trees and a birch forest with some cool features. And really, all of these seeds are going to have really good tree diversity, just because of where the Pale Gardens actually spawn. But we also have a jungle off in the distance, which is super duper nice. Having access to bamboo right off the bat for scaffolding is a huge plus. Plus, having the jungle trees with the acacia trees gives us pretty much all of the trees right off the bat. But this Pale Garden is super duper long, so maybe you wanted to make a mega build inside of a Pale Garden. But we also have more jungle and some islands and some other cool terrain features all around. This next seed has a really large swamp off to the east with some mangrove as well, a few badlands down to the south, and a really large ocean with some ocean temples scattered about. Spawning in, as usual, we see dark oak everywhere. I really love those islands though, those can be really cool for multiplayer. We also see a bunch of really cool snowy mountains as well, and a river kind of slicing the terrain, making it look really dynamic. Again, we have the spruce and the podzol, which is always a huge plus. You know, and really, all of these seeds are going to have really cool terrain just because of where the Pale Gardens spawn. Ooh, but right there we can see an azalea tree. That's always super fantastic because that means there's a lush cave underneath so we can get moss and those pink flowers and stuff like that. And it's always nice to have ice and snow right at spawn. Be able to build your ice boat highways and use the powdered snow and the regular snow as mechanics for farms and stuff. But I really love how most of these seeds have super dynamic terrain. Mountains cut by rivers and caves and stuff like that, just all over the place. And I think it's because the Pale Gardens seem to replace mountain dark oak forests, where like the pink petals, for example, they replaced mountain meadows. So that would definitely explain why everything is so dynamic and mountainous. But we also have a jungle really close by, and a giant cave right here in the Pale Garden that not only has lush cave stuff, but dripstone cave stuff as well. Like, that's super awesome. This next one looks pretty cold. We have some frozen oceans and some tiny badlands up to the north. Oh, and some tiny mushroom islands up in that frozen ocean as well. Spawning in, we are drowning. Oh no, we spawned inside of like a river or something. But if we float up, We can see that there is a fairly large ocean nearby with a really close ocean monument. We can see the Pale Garden up at the top of those mountains over here, and this one's pretty flat. The only elevated terrain is where the Pale Gardens are, so everything else is pretty flat, albeit covered in trees. The Pale Garden itself is a moderate size. It's not too big or too small. We have a fairly large village off in the distance with this kind of just line of mountains. It's kind of interesting that the only elevated terrain is in this kind of straight line cutting through flatland. So maybe if you want something more flat and less dynamic, this might interest you. Next up, there are villages everywhere. There's like 30 villages within 2,000 blocks of spawn. The biome diversity doesn't look all that great, but we do have a swamp and some cherry groves at least. Spawning in, this actually looks really nice. I love the smooth transition into the hilly terrain over here with the Pale Gardens on top. It looks very natural. Then we have a village. Oh, and we have some flat open land. Well, maybe not flat, but we have some open land that isn't covered in trees. Plus a flower mountain right next to spawn and a cherry grove off in the distance. And all in all, I really like this terrain. It's very smooth and looks more natural. When I was looking at the chunk base map, I wasn't very impressed at all. But now that I'm here, I really like that open terrain over there by the village. It just begs to be built on, and I love the smooth transitions of the elevated terrain. It looks so natural. The Pale Garden itself is very skinny and long, at least this section is. We have a ruined portal and a really cool mountain off in the distance. Oh, and it looks like the terrain on this side gets more dynamic. We have some more patches of Pale Gardens here and there. I really love these little islands in the middle of rivers, and this terrain looks much more crazy and dynamic, especially for Minecraft. It seems like most Minecraft worlds are either totally flat or just have these like really high elevation levels that just start from nowhere. Oh, but we also have a dripstone cave underneath this Pale Garden section. That's cool. This next seed looks like a winter wonderland. There are humongous patches of ice and a medium-sized mushroom island off to the west, so that's always cool. Spawning in, we can see snow and spruce trees. I really hope that none of this is powdered snow, because that might be a death trap right at spawn. We have a flower mountain right here too, which is cool. A very large cherry grove, it looks like, off in the distance. Ooh, a pillager outpost right there as well. Some really cool mountains that don't have any trees on top. Ooh, a giant cave underneath a mountain. That looks really cool. We definitely got to fly over there and check that out. This one looks really interesting. I was expecting more ice, but it looks like most of that is just mountains. Flying in here, oh, it's a lush cave. That's always a plus. We can get our azaleas and our moss right off the bat. And really quick, let me take a break from the commentary to say that if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to like, favorite, share, and leave a comment. Your support is crazy important and is the only thing that allows me to continue making these videos. So thank you so much. A lot of times with these seed videos, especially the Mushroom Island spawns, they get tons of views, but very few comments and activity. And I get it. People who click on these videos, they're wanting to play Minecraft. They just want to grab a number, plug it into Minecraft, and go. They're not looking for entertainment or information. But if you're still watching this video at this point, tell me what your favorite seed is. Tell me what you look for in seeds. If you don't know what to say, just tell me hi. Just know that your activity and your support is super duper important and greatly appreciated. But anyway, moving on to our next seed. So this one had a bunch of badlands around the world. It has some jungle off in the distance right from spawn. Ooh, there's some dripstone right on top of that mountain right there. That's super helpful. Get your lava farms going right off the bat. It has some savanna and some more jungle. Ooh, a jungle temple. That's always cool. But jungle temples are, not the bestest, but they're always really interesting. Ooh, I really like that dripstone hole as well. This one has some really interesting things. Oh, look at this. After the Pale Garden, we have this really cool, what is this called? Like a crater? It kind of looks like a volcanic crater or something, and then there's a nice river cutting through the jungle as well. Ah, this looks really cool. I would love to build something in that crater. That would be super cool. Oh, we got even more dripstone in a giant cave right there. A little island right here with trees on top. And even more Pale Garden going off in the distance. This one's really cool. I really like this. It has a really good diversity. It has really good features. All in all, the Pale Garden might be a little farther from spawn, but it makes up for it. Now, slowly but surely, the Pale Gardens are moving farther away from spawn. But I like to think that these make up for it in other ways. I ended up with a lot of seeds that had pale gardens at a medium distance, so I went through and deleted a lot of them that didn't have diversity or cool features. Like this one has that really cool cave at spawn, some ruined portals and some villages around, some savanna for the acacia trees, and a jungle right there. All in all, it has a really good spawn diversity. Plus, it has this calcite mountains, which I absolutely love. I love calcite. It was one of my favorite blocks for a long, long time. So having these mountains with those veins is always a huge plus. We have ruined portals just all over the place in villages, and some really cool mountains in different places, some frozen ones and some hot ones, and like this one right here just looks fantastic. This mountain is so cool. This would make like a great background for any build. You know, we have patches of pale garden all over the place, from small ones to big ones. Oh, and this mountain even has a hole in the middle. It has like a crater. I love that. You know, building stuff in those craters is just fantastic. So that's always a humongous plus. You know, and this part of the Pale Garden is huge. And there's even more off in the distance over here as well. Even though these are getting farther away, they make up for it in other different ways. Right off the bat, this seed is amazing. It has gigantic mushroom islands off to the east, it has a stronghold really close to spawn, plus a badlands nearby as well, really good diversity, and really good features. Spawning in, we can see cherry trees on top of that mountain, and a portal that's like 10 feet from spawn. This is great for speedrunning the nether and speedrunning the end. The start of the ocean that leads to the mushroom islands over there, so maybe for farms or something like that. The closest Pale Garden is a really, really good size. But first, let's go check out these cherry groves, not only because they're cool and they have some caves nearby, but this one in particular is humongous, and it has a pillager outpost right in the middle of it. I would love to build a base or a farm there. I love humongous cherry groves. We also got some cool lonely mountains and some more caves and some patches of pale garden, but this one right here is a really nice, big, circular size. Perfect for some kind of mega build in the pale garden. This next one has a giant swamp and mangrove up to the north. You can see a mushroom island poking its head out to the south, and the stronghold is really close by as well. And this one spawns us in a birch forest, which is pretty different from what we've seen before. We still are surrounded by dark oak, and the land is relatively flat. So you could always just clear out the trees and be left with some nice flat land for building if that's what you like to do. Or if you like birch, there's a lot of birch here at spawn, plus some dark oak as well. But there's even another birch forest over here, and some teeny tiny islands, which, you know, aren't that cool, but at least they exist. All in all, it does have some nice features, like villages and stuff like that, some good tree diversity, and the Pale Garden is a pretty good size as well. Now, I'm not the most impressed by this seed. It does have an azalea tree right here in the middle, meaning that there's a lush cave underneath, so that is a plus. I was honestly more impressed by the chunk base map of this seed than I am actually spawning in. But the farther out we go, the more we see some really cool features. Oh, and there's some access to the lush cave right here as well, and it looks like a really good size, so that definitely is a plus. Next up, we have a coastal spawn with fire and ice. You know, we got hot biomes to the east and cold biomes to the west. You can see that we spawn here on the coast, and there is lots of flatland nearby, so that's always cool for building and stuff like that. We got some savanna trees over there and a village really close by. Ooh, and a cherry grove too. We can at least get some cherry saplings and get those a-going. Plus with the spruce and the acacia, the tree diversity is fantastic. All of them are visible within spawning distance. This mountain looks really cool. It has some giant caves underneath it. And it's also neat that like one side of spawn has tons of trees and forests, and the other side of spawn is flat and empty. So y'all can all build over to the east and collect wood from the west. Ooh, and that island over there has a jungle on top as well. So there you go, like 5 for 5 on the tree diversity. Next up, we got a jungle spawn. It has a stronghold pretty close by, a really big swamp and a mangrove up to the northwest, and some badlands as well. Spawning inside of a jungle is always a humongous plus. Being able to get early bamboo so that you can get easy sticks and easy chests and easy wood and scaffolding and all that stuff is always super duper helpful. You know, for early and late game, honestly, like I use bamboo for sticks throughout the entire game because it's just so fast and easy. We got some nice structures around, like villages and stuff like that. Lots of tree diversity, really big forested areas. Then off in the distance, we see the cherry groves and a ruined portal on top of a mountain, and so it kind of transitions from easy flatland to this crazy elevated terrain cut up into pieces by rivers. I love it when this happens because you can build really cool bridges kind of from the tops of different mountains over across the rivers. And then over there we have a lonely mountain that is completely covered in cherry trees, which is so super cool. We got a teeny tiny pale garden right there, and then a larger one kind of cut out in a peninsula type thing over here on this side as well. I like this seed. This is a really nice seed. It has really good diversity, really good features, and anything that starts you off in a jungle is always great. Having access to bamboo, like from the get-go, is so super valuable. Bamboo is probably one of the most valuable farms and things in the game. Which finally brings us to our very last seed. Now this one has a really large swamp with some kind of badland type area up to the northwest. We spawn here on the coast, greeted by some sea turtles, because there is a very large ocean right next to spawn. So that could be cool, or maybe not. It all just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But we have like a ruined boat and a village directly behind that boat. And the ocean itself makes spawn directional, where all players are basically going to go in the same directions. The initial spawn area is very flat. There's some islands chopped up by rivers, some cherry groves, and some other islands off the coast. Some really interesting terrain features. This one is kind of niche. It's not like a blatant best seed ever kind of thing, but it's very interesting. Some of the features it has are very unique. And the Pale Garden itself is gargantuan. Like, this is definitely one of the largest Pale Gardens we've seen in this entire video. 5 people could build giant builds in this Pale Garden and still have room. We also have some more cherry groves and some other interesting terrain features all around the Pale Garden as well. Let me know what your favorite thing about this update is. Do you love the Pale Garden? Do you love the creeking, the white wood, the amber blocks? I've heard so many mixed reviews on the amber blocks where some people hate it and some people love it. Pretty much everyone loves the white wood though, but what is your favorite? I personally love the white wood and I love the amber blocks as well. Plus, any update that actually gives us a new farm is mind-blowing. Mojang hates farms, so anytime we actually get a new one, it just makes me so super happy. But that's all we got for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe. Always remember that you are totally awesome, and above all, don't forget to have fun. Bye-bye!